In general, I'm not a big fan of minions in ARPGs, mostly because it's very hard to get them to do what I want. The game was really trying to tell me something recently. I got a 2 LP Wraithlord's Harbor and a near perfect rolled Herald of Ascuri. And since I finished up with Torment Lock, I guess I had no choice but to re-roll to minions. And I accidentally ended up leveling as Minion Army, because this time I didn't go into leveling with a plan. I didn't go into leveling by following a guide. I just went, you know what, I have a couple of minion items and random stuff that I can use for leveling in my stash, so I threw on a few uniques and just kind of went with it. In the early levels, I was using Rip Blood a lot, since you can't really level as a Necromancer until you become a Necromancer. And speaking of Necromancy, if you want to see what I do end up making with that Wraithlord's Harbor, then do be sure to get subscribed and leave a like while you're down there. For now, let's see how I got to this point. Because from an early level, even if I wasn't truly a Necromancer, I was using minions. I found both skeletons and golems to be highly effective at low levels. If anything, it's just to draw aggro, though they're also a little bit squishy, especially to damage over time effects. But honestly, the early game progression was really smooth. And so, once I became a Necromancer, I immediately started investing points so that I could unlock Skeletal Mages. Just because I thought, well, if I'm already using minions, and minions are pretty darn strong, I might as well go into those. My plan was to use minions until they started to fall off, which, as it turns out, throughout most of the story, they were really good. They didn't die all that much. The Golem, especially converted over to cold, was freezing things very efficiently, and I had a good time. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end, and in Chapter 5, they got shredded pretty badly, but that's just Chapter 5 things. So I went through Chapter 5 as quickly as possible, mostly running past enemies, and when I got to the sewers in Chapter 6, I found that actually the minions were staying alive pretty well again. Now at this point, I decided to add in Wraiths. For a little bit, I tried volatile zombies, and I'm sure there's a build that you can use for volatile zombies, but it felt like they weren't quite persistent enough, and I had enough mana troubles as it was, resummoning all my other minions due to their occasional deaths. Which I think is in part because I made one mistake while building out my minion character. I went into all the cool Skeletal Mage types. I was like, oh, I can get Pyromancers, and I can get Cryomancers, and I can have all this fun stuff. I probably should have gone with Minion Leech first, so that they were able to survive more easily. Because, as I noticed later in my run, while I was approaching level 50, after having invested into Minion Leech, they died much less often. And so without too much issue, I was able to get all of my idle slots, all of my passive points, and reach around level 50, at which point I'm perfectly able to step into the endgame, because this was an alt, so I didn't have to worry about completing the story, dealing with Majasa, or anything like that. And now I just wanted to take you into a quick snapshot of what my gear was like, my skills, all that fun stuff, when I was there. Keep in mind, I have YOLO'd this. This is very much not a guide, this is not optimal. Use it as inspiration, or if you want a step-by-step guide that actually takes you through tried and true and tested choices, then head over to Maxwell and check out the Necromancer guide there. As a note, I didn't use it while leveling, so I don't actually know how much it differs from what I did. Instead, all I did was open it, yoink the loot filter, and here we are. Alrighty, we are in Thetima, level 47, and first I'm going to go over my specialized skills. Now, early on, I had specialized a little bit differently. I was using Summon Skeleton rather than the Summon Wraith. And I went here because I wanted to go over here to Lone Guardian and get rid of the warriors entirely, but then my damage was kind of falling off, so I went over to Sweeping Strikes, and then I clicked Rogues, which felt like a mistake, and then I just respec'd everything. Because it felt like once I had Skeletal Mages, summoning both regular skeletons and Skeletal Mages wasn't worth it. Also, I kind of feel like between Rogues, Archers, and Warriors are the best, so I was building it wrong anyway. My bony boy, well, he's not actually a bony boy anymore. I turned him into a cold boy with Death Chill Golem. Then I gave him some extra threat so things would attack him, gave him some extra armor so he could survive things attacking, and then Bladed Fists for more and more damage. Overall, this felt really good as I was able to chill and freeze stuff. I don't actually know if Breath of Formosus would have been worth it. I didn't have very much vitality. Now for Skeletal Mages, I was very tempted to come over here to Death Knights, but I was also very late in the progression and didn't want to redo stuff. Early on, I rushed both Pyromancers and Cryomancers because I assumed they were better. Problem is, I found it was really inconsistent to summon them, so it probably would have been better to just go Death Knights and scale melee stuff instead, so you don't have to worry about other mage types and inconsistencies and all that. It also means that you get to go through the leech life early, which was super, super, super important. I would grab at least 1 point in leech life really early on to increase that minion survivability. And then I got Undead Mortars because it seemed cool, and I don't know, Battle Hardened probably let them use it more. I have no idea if this was actually impactful or not. I picked it up really late. For Dreadshade, I added this fairly late. I started with Lingering Doom to add base necrotic damage, because why not ramp damage stuff up? But then I also swapped to Lone Watcher, so no more increases and reductions to health drain, and instead increased damage. That way, especially if I stuck it on a Wraith that was temporary anyway, it wasn't really a big deal, and it could buff everything around it. And after that, I just tried to click things that say more damage an area. I have no idea if this is really worth using while leveling. It kind of felt like it wasn't all that impactful. I'm sure it added more damage, but did it add enough? I'm gonna guess no. One thing that came in clutch, though, is Wraith. Especially in Chapter 5, where my minions were getting shredded anyway, Wraiths were super chill. Something that I picked up again later than I should have is Necrotic Hunger. I would get this very early. I went down here to lower the health drain first. I think I should have gone 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2, 3. I tried Flame Wraith for a little bit. It didn't seem all that worth it at a 22% chance. I believe there are some relics or idols that let you play an actual Flame Wraith build, in which case that would be cool. Maybe you could even play Flame Wraithlord. I haven't experimented with that at all yet because I'm not high enough level to use the helmet. I'll look into it in the future. But this is how I spec'd things. I mostly didn't go over here because I saw, you know, mana cost and stuff and cooldowns, and like, that seemed annoying to manage. Now, coming over to passives, the first thing I grabbed was Blood Aura into Dark Rituals, and then I filled out with Forbidden Knowledge to get some resist. I kind of feel like either Bone Aura or Stolen Vitality might have been better, to be honest. Like, Necromancer is nice and all, and having it capped is cool, but it felt like resistances that I didn't really need. Though I think some of the minions scale off intelligence, it is a little bit of damage. Having the increased minion health early on, though, probably would have been better. And the reason I ended up with 7 out of 8 here is in the early game, I wasn't Necro-Res capped and things were shredding me, so I redistributed a point. So here we have Risen Army. It's minion stuff. I grabbed 5 points in this before moving on to Cursed Blood, which I knew getting minion armor shred would be really, really, really important, so I wanted 4 points here. I didn't think getting over 100% was super necessary, and I also wanted blood armor. In fact, my pathing was more of 5 points here, 8 points here, then backfilling this way. And then I put the remaining 2 in Mark of Punishment since my Wraiths are dying sometimes. I don't think this is super impactful and you could probably drop it. From there, I grabbed Frantic Summons, Moonlight Pyre, and River of Bones. That way, minion health leech, super, super powerful. It finally let my Golem leech a little bit, and it made all the other minions super, super survivable. I very much recommend this. My plan would be to put 5 more points in here, and then probably come over to something like Rite of Undeath to give myself resistances, or maybe Heresy to give minion damage, and following that with Blades of the Forlorn for minion crit multi. And again, +1 Skeletal Mage is also pretty cool, so maybe I'd go like 3, 2, 1, call it good, and move on to other endpoint nodes. For gearing, we have what I call the kitchen sink approach, which is to say I had random unique items lying around, so I decided to use them. Doublet of Onos Tull provided a lot of damage via bleed stacking early on. I would very much recommend using one if you can get your hands on it. Advent of the Erased. I happen to have a few lying around, one of which rolled movement speed. The Crit Strike Avoid and cooldown recovery is also pretty cool on this. I really just wanted some way to move faster at low levels. Ambitions of an Erased Acolyte. Literally just +1 to Acolyte skills is all I cared about. It rolled a bunch of random garbage. Actually, this rolled terribly. I don't think the word was particularly relevant. The Slab was just the first shield I found in my stash. It's probably actually detrimental. Any shield would be good, though. Snowblind, I mean, it's 29% cold res. That's the only reason I'm wearing it. I happened to actually get this as a drop, so I put it on. Then we have Cleaver Solution. One-handed axe doesn't do very much for the build. Int is equal to your strength, which means taking int nodes is kind of pointless, but it says +1 to all skills on it, and the weapons I found were garbage. So again, I just put it on from my stash, and I didn't have too many issues If you don't have this, that's totally fine. Any old minion weapon will do. And this is just what I ended up picking up. Cooldown recovery for a transplant, teleport more, some vitality and necrotic res. I think I had this one in my stash and I just grabbed it at the start. Let's see. Bleed on hit doesn't do much, but necro res, fire res, health, all that fun stuff. And as you can see, most of it is just random junk, but I'm only level 47. So now my plan is to go into Monoliths, level up a little bit more, and get to the point where I can actually put Wraithlord on. For the rest of my gear, I just prioritized life and resistance suffixes on all the rare pieces. Admittedly, I prioritized those things when I didn't forget to upgrade my gear, because there's definitely a very large portion from like level 28 to level 35 that I completely forgot to upgrade any of the items. I was just cruising along, and until I hit chapter 5, which actually might have been slightly before 35, I don't remember. Either way, till chapter 5, I completely forgot to upgrade my gear. But hey, as long as you got move speed on your boots and you're not getting one-shot, it's totally fine. Now overall, I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to level minions in Last Epoch. There were definitely times where the minions attacked the wrong target, and there were definitely times when they absolutely got destroyed. For example, when I was like level 15, I thought, maybe I should use the Lightless Arbor to dungeon skip. Yeah, don't do that if you're a minion build. They get completely annihilated, at least if you're 5 levels under. I'm sure with a few more levels, or possibly just some actual real gear, it would have been totally fine. But at that point, the base bleed from my doublet of Onos Tull was about the only thing I had going for me. One thing that really surprised me is, as I started investing into Minion Life and Minion Leech, my build ended up feeling stronger and stronger and stronger. So I would very much recommend prioritizing those over minion damage things, especially in the early game. It can feel like, oh, my damage is really low, I need my minions to do more DPS. That's a trap that I fell into myself, which I kind of regret. Because yes, it felt like my minions weren't doing damage, and like I needed more minion damage. But that was because they kept dying. They weren't alive and not killing stuff, they were getting murdered, therefore not killing stuff. And if I had invested in a little bit of Leech and a little bit more minion life early on, I do think that would have solved a lot of my problems. Things like focusing a little less on the intelligence and necrotic res, which helped with my own survivability from the stray hits I was taking, and a little bit more on the minion stuff. Something else that I was pleasantly surprised with is how effective the Golem was at taking aggro. Just having a big thing run in and taunt or AoE everything was genuinely a pleasant surprise. Skeletons seemed okay. I have no idea if there's an endgame viable build for them, because they felt like they were falling off and it was too much work to maintain both skeleton mages and regular skeletons, so I went with a mage route because they were ranged. On the other hand, Wraiths seemed pretty awesome. Yeah, it was a little mana intensive to constantly be summoning and resummoning and resummoning. However, they felt like they did more than enough damage to justify it. I didn't play too much with volatile zombies, just a little bit without specializing them, and I didn't get to use Assemble Abomination since right as I unlocked it was right when I stopped to make the video. I might mess with it on my way to level 73 to equip the Wraithlord's Harbor, but we'll have to see. And so in short, I can say that leveling minions in Last Epoch wasn't that bad, and I'm successfully continuing my quest to never play a Primalist for no good reason in Last Epoch. I don't know when or why this became a thing, but I guess it's a thing now, so I have to keep sticking to it. That said, if my next build is a Primalist, don't be surprised because I am going to get to it at some point. Right after I play Barbarian in Diablo 4. Now to be clear, I did also have a really good time playing Falconer, which is a minion build. Kind of sort of, except that the Falcon is super aggressive and completely immortal, which makes it a far superior minion to anything that I've done here. Oh, and it has super awesome AoE, the damage is way overtuned. Yeah, Falcon's really good. It did not feel like a minion build at all. And so I'm pleasantly surprised with a more traditional minion build also felt pretty good. I'm also curious about your thoughts. Have you played a lot of minion builds, and if so, do they feel good? Do they feel bad? Which ones are good or bad? Let me know down in the comments below. Now, if you're looking for something else to watch, check out my Falconer and Warlock leveling. Those live streams went very well, and I took the character all the way up from 1 to 70. On the other hand, if you're looking for a guide on Necromancer to take you through things step by step, then I recommend heading over to MaxwellGG and checking out the Necromancer guide. It's something that I probably should have done, and I bet my leveling experience would have been smoother if I did. But oh well, I had fun YOLOing it, so no harm done. Those will be up in the card and down below. With that said, I'd like to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as little as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. Link to support is also down below. Overall, I don't think I'm very good at leveling. Most of the time, I'm not particularly fast, nor am I particularly optimized. I tend to do things like forget to upgrade my gear for 10 plus levels. However, leveling in Last Epoch seems very streamlined, so you don't have to be very good at it to have a good time, which is something that I'm very glad of. With that, hopefully you can learn something from my mistakes. If you enjoyed the video, do remember to give it a like, share it with a friend, and I'll see you in the next one.